Hello, I'm Daniel. I'm going to talk to you today about forms of sitting meditation practice. Forms of sitting meditation practice. I think we spend a lot of time talking about how meditation is good, we should meditate. Don't miss your meditation practice. It's hard to keep meditating, right? And that's not what I'm going to talk about today. Today I'm going to talk about, I think we don't spend enough time talking about what we're doing. And so today I'm going to talk about forms of sitting practice, and I'm going to focus on what you do with your body. What you do with your body. There are some traditions where there are some meditation practices where all they talk about is what you do with your body. And they don't even talk about what you do with your mind at all. They just talk about what you do with your body, because the theory behind that is if your body is still and stable, then your mind is going to become still and stable, even if you don't try. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that is one school of thought. So I'm just going to talk about how we sit. So first of all, it helps to have something to sit on. I've got this sweet meditation cushion here, and you could use a pillow or roll up a towel or anything. Point of that is it's easier to be stable. It's easier to be stable. It's harder to be stable if you're just sitting on the floor, unless you're sitting against something, which I think is also okay. Some people would tell you never sit against anything. You have to use just your own ability to sit still. Don't lean on anything. I don't agree with that. I also don't agree with people that say you shouldn't sit on a chair, right? I don't sit on a chair though. I sit on my cushion on the floor. Sometimes when I sit in my living room, I will just sit against the wall though. I do that, and that's supposed to be against the rules, but I do it sometimes. Anyway, so here I am sitting, right? And I'm going to talk about my legs first. We need to have our legs. One, we need a plan for what our legs are doing, and two, we need to find a position where our feet do not fall asleep. That is a real danger. If your feet are falling asleep, it's really hard to keep meditating, right? It's really easy to stop and get up. So I sit in the half lotus, which I hope I can show you here. Yes, so I've got one foot on top of my knee, the other foot tucked underneath. That's called the half lotus. My kids can sit in the full lotus. I can't do that, but that is one foot on top of your knee, other foot on top of your knee. It's very hard for me. It's very hard for a lot of people. My kids do it and they make fun of me. But if you can't do the half lotus, and some people even can't do the half lotus, and then it could be recommended to do what's called the Burmese position, which is just your legs crossed. It's what they called Indian style when I was a kid, and they don't call it Indian style anymore. What, crisscross applesauce, I think is what my kids call it, but cross legs, that's fine too. The most important thing is that your legs, like I said, they have a plan, and I'm going to say that about a lot of different body parts. You got to have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, then you could fidget. It's a point of distraction. I have found that if I sit cross-legged, the Burmese, I guess it's called the Burmese position. That must be how they meditate in Burma. I don't know. But when I sit in the Burmese position, my feet fall asleep. So I don't do it. I do the half lotus, and my feet don't fall asleep. Or very rarely fall asleep. I'm told that in the full lotus, your feet never fall asleep. So what else are we doing? I'm going to talk about your hands. Again, like your legs, it's good to have a plan for what your hands are doing, because if you don't, your hands could be a point of distraction. If you don't have a plan for what your hands are doing, it's really easy to scratch an itch or rub a sore muscle or whatever. It's really easy to use them if they don't have a plan for what they're doing. And if you do have a plan for what your hands are doing, then you take a second to think, oh, is this worth stopping what my hands are doing, right? So what I like to do, what is usually done in the Zen tradition, is what is called the Cosmic Mudra, which is hand, other hand on top, both thumbs touching, and then just rest it in my lap. There are people that say you have to put the right hand on bottom. There are people that say you have to put the left hand on bottom. I don't think it matters that much, but there are people that will tell you it matters a lot. And I'm not even going to tell you which one I do, because I don't think it matters. But we rest that in our lap with our thumbs gently touching. We don't want to press with our thumbs. That's going to be a point of distraction. So we just gently touch our thumbs, put it here. When I used to teach meditation to kids, we called it the Buddha bowl. And you just rest it in your lap. Another recommended form is called the relaxation mudra. Mudra just means hand thing. I don't know what it means, but we just call it a mudra. Don't be scared off by that word. The relaxation mudra is you just take your hands, just rest them on your knees. That's it. And you just leave them there, rested on your knees. And I think both of these are good. I think the most important thing is to have a plan for what your hands are doing. If you don't have a plan, then you're going to fidget. At least it's been my understanding I fidget if I don't have a plan. So what's next? It helps to kind of move your shoulders a little bit, and we're going to sit up as straight as we possibly can. I have always found that when I start to slouch, my mind is also wandering. If I'm slouching, I'm not meditating. The body and mind are connected in that way. So we want to have good posture. It's really hard. I don't think we get taught posture like kids used to be taught posture all their lives. I don't think we're taught that anymore. So for many of us, it's very hard to have good posture, but we want to sit up as straight as we can. That provides a lot of stability. It makes all our spine straight. It makes our vertebrae stack on each other properly. It is really the best way to sit. If we don't sit, if we're sitting like this, eventually your back's going to hurt sitting this way. If you sit this way, hopefully it won't. Although again, this is the first time I'm saying this. If you have real medical condition, back problems, do something else. Right? If you cannot sit like this, if it's painful, do something else. I think that's okay. Some people say you should never sit in a chair, and I disagree with that. I think sitting in a chair, if you really want to, just make sure your feet are firmly planted on the floor and you're not moving. And then I think sitting in a chair is fine. We want to sit up as straight as we can. Gosh, I forgot to tell you one sitting position. I'm going to tell you it now. This is a knees position. I've heard it called seiza. We can call it whatever we want, but it's just, you just put your cushion sideways between your legs, sit on your knees like this. It's really easy to sit straight this way. It's problematic if you have ever had knee problems. This is probably going to be uncomfortable for you, and I know a lot of people have had knee problems in their lives. So if you've ever had knee problems, this is probably not going to work very well for very long for you, and that's just something we have to accept, right? And so let me think. Talked about chairs, talked about half lotus, full lotus. Okay, talked about seiza, right? So what else is there? And again, this video is just about sitting practice. I'm not talking about laying down to meditate. I'm not talking about walking meditation. I'm not talking about standing meditation, which is my least favorite. I'm talking about just sitting. So we will save talking about laying down to meditate for another time. I know some people have real physical ailments and they can't sit for very long and they have to lay down, and I think that's okay. But it's not what I'm focused on right now. I'm focused on sitting. So one more thing. What are our eyes doing, right? So in some traditions, they say close your eyes. I like to meditate with my eyes open, and I try to look at something that's not interesting, something that's not going to distract me. So I'm looking at, this is my phone, I'm looking at the wall behind my phone. That's what I like to do. Another recommended form that's very similar is you just have your gaze just downcast a little bit, like people say 45-degree angle. I'm not sure the specific angle is important, but just looking down at, pick a part of the floor and just look at that. Just look. I know a lot of people recommend meditating with your eyes closed. I find that I daydream when I do that. So I only rarely will I do that because I find that I daydream. Whereas if I'm looking at something, I'm not daydreaming. Although I would say don't look at something that's going to distract you. Like if you've got something like this, don't look at that when you're meditating. That's insane. You're not going to steady the mind at all. So, talked about posture, talked about straight back, talked about eyes, talked about hands, talked about different ways to sit. Okay. So, now I'm going to tell you about following the breath, and we're going to follow the breath for just a couple minutes and then we'll be done. So I want you to sit, figure out the way you're going to be comfortable, figure out what you want to do with your hands, figure out what you want to do with your eyes, and take a couple of really big deep breaths. just going to do the practice of following the breath for a couple of minutes. So, what is the practice of following the breath? I think we all know, but maybe we don't. Following the breath is where we bring our attention to our body's sensation of breathing. We do this for a couple of reasons. One is because it's something that we're always doing, but although we're always doing it, we don't typically bring a lot of importance to it in our minds. Unless we're not doing it, then it becomes super important, right? And two, it kind of connects the mind and body. That is, when your mind is calm, your breathing is slow. When your mind is agitated, your breathing is fast. So in that way, mind and body are connected through the breath. And a third thing is it is a literal constant connection to our environment, right? We are breathing in our environment and we're breathing out into our environment. So we are, in a very literal way, connected to everything every time we breathe, and that's important. So, on your next in-breath, I want you to mentally count 1, and on the out-breath, mentally count 2. And, okay, focus, right? So there's 2 methods that I like to talk about. One is we focus on the breath coming into and going out of our nose, and I like that one. And the other one is we focus on the rise and fall of our belly. So when I breathe in, my belly gets bigger. When I breathe out, my belly gets smaller. I think either focus is good. I think if you have a lot of trouble focusing on the breath, you can touch your belly and literally feel it with your hands, rise and fall, and do it that way. I think if you have a lot of trouble, I really recommend that. Okay? So this is following the breath. This is the practice that usually gets recommended to beginners. And we're going to do it for just a couple minutes. So on your next in-breath, mentally count 1. On your out-breath, count 2. The purpose of this is to be an anchor, so every time something comes up to distract you, whether it be a thought or a memory or a thinking about what you're doing later or a daydream or whatever, we just want to bring our minds back to 1 on the next in-breath. We don't want to beat ourselves up and think, "Gah, why am I distracted?" We want to just bring our minds back to 1 on the next in-breath. That's the point. The counting is our anchor, okay? So, all of that talking being said, on your next in-breath, mentally count 1, in 1. On your out-breath, 2. In 1, out 2. And then we will take a couple of deep breaths at the end. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me and to sit with me. I encourage you to do this practice tonight. You don't need me to do it. You can just do it. Set a timer and do this practice tonight before you go to bed. Just the breathing practice. Breathe in 1, breathe out 2. And I think that if you do it tonight and you do it maybe a few times this week, you will like your experience. Or at least you won't have such a struggle to keep coming back to it. And also, I think doing it for just 2 minutes is better than not doing it at all. So even if you feel like you don't have time, I think 2, 5, 10 minutes, I think those are okay. I think longer is probably better, but 2, 5, 10, 11 minutes, whatever, is good. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Have a great day.